Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Now in today's video we are carrying on with the DIY trunk build. So from my first video I have painted some of it after the sanding and the filling in the gaps, so I've still got some areas to paint and it's now to carry on with some of the finer details to make it more like a Harry Potter trunk. So the first job before touching up some of the paint was to tape off the handle. I'm not sure what I want to do with it, so I've taped it off just in case I decide to keep the original. Next I put some flat-headed nails into some cards. Now this just helps them to stand up and make sure that they can be painted effectively and all over. So as you can see they're all inserted and I've done more than I possibly needed. I then picked up some fast dry Project Enamel spray paints. This is the same one I used for creating my Nimbus 2000, so I know it's really good. And then essentially I just sprayed all the flat-headed nails. The can was only a couple of pounds, so it's really cheap and you can pick up in most stores. The benefit of using the card actually means that you can spray in all the hard details. Essentially they'll be put into wood so you can't see this, but you do know that then you've covered all of them so they're now gold as opposed to the silver. Then all you need to do is make sure you leave them to dry. I left them to dry overnight because the rain is really slowing down the trunk build, but leave them to dry and then you've got yourself the finer details needed for this trunk. Next up is one of the most important jobs, and that's measuring the wooden slats to go on the front for the decoration. These are actually slats from a bed. I picked them up in B&Q for a couple of pounds just because they're the perfect size and I thought they'd be a lot easier. I also cut them so I had 2 additional bits for the top of the trunk, and this is all for the decoration to give it that Harry Potter trunk effect. This was made easier by using power tools to cut the wood after measuring the sizes, but you can use it with a saw. So in total I had 6 pieces of wood and they're 3 different sizes depending on what size box you're attaching it to. I also picked up just this interior wood adhesive glue, again a couple of pounds, so really cheap to pick up. Just be careful because some of these can be really toxic or can stain, so make sure you either use gloves and old clothes just so it doesn't stain or get on anything that is good condition. You can see I then started to glue the wood, starting with the front of the trunk. Learn from my mistake, I did actually put way too much glue on this first one. So what happened essentially when I pushed it down is all the glue just splurted out. You can kind of see from the video that all the white glue came out at either side, and it just meant that I had to clean it up. So I would just glue the outside so it's nice and firm and not use too much glue. Learn from my mistake. The measuring ruler was there to help keep it straight and in line, and then as I mentioned I made sure that I cleaned up any of the extra glue, so just use sparingly. And then it's really important that you do put some additional weight. You can see there's a slight bow, and as I mentioned that's because these are bed slat pieces of wood, so just find anything that has got some weight to it you can put pressure on so that it stays in the correct place and that it glues really effectively. The extra glue did take me a little while, and I did learn from this, so on all the other pieces of wood I just glued the outside part. I kind of used sparingly. I then made sure that I applied pressure to it. It was just a bit of a pain to clear up all the glue. It got quite sticky and messy and I just didn't want to ruin the front of the box. For the heavy items I started to apply pressure myself before actually using some gym weights, so I found these really useful and I could put pressure on both ends where my hands are at the minute. It made sure that the bowing kind of was decreased and that the wood stuck effectively to the front. The weights on for a good couple of hours, and as it was sunny it really didn't matter, so the glue had time to dry and the pressure was applied to make sure it stuck really well. Once I knew after a couple of hours that it had applied, I moved on to actually starting to stick the top of the box, and as I mentioned it's really important to use that glue sparingly to make sure it stays. So I got the top pieces of wood in place. This was a lot quicker. I just made sure that these lined up with the front of the box, so they were in line with the front and they were all in sync. I was really lucky on this day, like I said, because the sun was shining, so I left the box to kind of dry for 24 hours. You don't have to leave it for that long, but I definitely recommend between 5 to 8 hours with pressure on the glued areas just to make sure that everything is held in place. And the last bit I did is I painted it exactly the same colour as the normal trunk. What I didn't realise is the bed slat actually has like a plastic coating, which I didn't sand off. So once I painted it, it did leave like a wood effect, and actually I really did like it, so I've left it in place. Final job, I used a drill to drill some holes in the front of the trunk on the display area, and I'm actually inserted the flat-headed nails that are dried, they're completely gold. So I drilled a hole and then hammered them in with a hammer to securely put them in place. You don't have to use power tools, but it always helps. It's definitely now starting to look like a Harry Potter trunk. So I started this process. Unfortunately the rain did stop play, which was really sad, so I managed to get one side done, but unfortunately you are going to have to wait now for part 3 and hopefully some better weather to see how this finished up. Thanks for watching, and if you did enjoy, please do like, comment and subscribe.